How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Ghoulish. I am Max Booth, an undead host. You are listening to a podcast that I do sometimes. Look, I'm going to be honest, I'm pissed off. I just did this fucking amazing intro. It was an 8-minute intro. You wouldn't believe how great it was. Didn't realize it was recording to the wrong microphone. Lately, for some reason, whenever I have Bluetooth enabled on my cell phone, my desktop automatically syncs the microphone from my phone into the desktop, and I don't understand why it keeps doing it, because I keep saying disconnect and don't do that again, yet it does it anyway, and it did it this time. So I didn't realize until I was 8 minutes into my fucking intro that it did this again. It didn't record a goddamn thing. So I've lost my good vibes for this intro. It was great. You'll never hear it again. And I apologize for that. You will go to your grave being upset you did not hear my intro to the Hands episode of Ghoulish. But let me tell you, it was one of a kind. Shelly Lyons is the guest today. We're talking about hands on the podcast known as Ghoulish, because Shelly wrote a book. It's called Like Real. It's available now through Ghoulish Books, which you can pick up right now. Go to ghoulishbooks.com, pick up Shelly's book, and listen to this podcast episode about hands. This is intro number 2. Intro number 1, you will never know what it sounded like. Beyond that, it was awesome. Also, go buy a badge to the Ghoulish Book Fest. ghoulishbookfest.com, happening in San Antonio in April. I had a much smoother transition to that conversation too in the previous intro, but I'm not doing that again, so you'll just have to listen to me abruptly change topic. Fuck it. This is it. Just listen to the episode. It's a great one, unlike this intro. Also, with this podcast, I usually do the intro separately, so I'm going to jump right into it as if I've already said some great intro, pitching everything, and everyone's like, oh, wow, this is exciting. So I want to begin with how this book was written, because I know it has an interesting background to it, because you wrote it originally as a screenplay, right?
Yeah. It was, I don't know how or why I came up with that, but I thought I've always liked hands in movies, like crawling hands. I don't even know what the movie was, but I saw it on a Sunday afternoon as a kid, probably an old 50s movie with the crawling hand in it. And it just, was featured in my nightmares for years. So I wanted to do something like that. And so I wrote the screenplay. It had a bunch of different names. It was called Machine Hand at one point. And then I was kind of burned out on the screenplay a little bit. I wasn't burned out. I just had a first draft and then maybe partial second draft. And that's when I saw a Facebook post from John Skip about easy peasy, turning your screenplay into a novel. And John is this, I don't know, he's just this merry, wise guy that is just so full of, despite the darkness of some of his texts, he's just really a bright light in the world. And so I love his attitude about everything. And he made it sound easy, and so then I asked him I think I reached out. He's giving me more credit than I think I deserve for getting his class together, because I think it might have been his idea, but I immediately signed up for the class. And we got there, and there's 4 of us. And it was in this mid-century groovy 1970s, mid-century 70s, not that's not really mid-century, but 70s like treehouse up in the hills of Los Angeles. It was awesome. And I feel like there was shag carpet, but that just could be me thinking that there was shag carpet because there should have been shag carpet, but there was a cool fireplace, and not that we needed it. But anyway, so then had us bring note cards, stacks of note cards. He just paired us up, and we took turns just spitting out images, ideas. It could have been an image, a bit of dialogue, a plot point. And so we got so many of them, and then we weed them out, and then finally we lay them all over the carpet and manipulate them. And John, okay, so on PBS a long time ago, I saw Kenneth Branagh on stage, and Derek Jacobi, another writer, another actor, but also a director, was his director, and he's just kind of tailing behind him and going, "Be deeper, go further," and sort of hectoring him to get the best performance out of him. And so I thought about that when Skip was walking around the living room, although it's more of a hippie doing it, you know? So it's like, all right, that's good. Do you need that there? I don't know. Think about it. And so he was just like this benevolent hippie sage going, no, that note card won't work. That's a good one. So finally we get the note cards we want. We kind of get an order we want. And then the task was to just bring every week, bring pages, and we'd all read them, and we would give each other feedback.
Wow.
And at some point we kind of lost 2 people. I said to life events in all my bios. It wasn't anything like, nothing was wrong with them. But they just had other things they had to do. So it was just Asman and myself, which was cool because, listen to this, man. I actually sat, what was it, Brian in the middle? I think Skip was in the middle, Brandon was on one side, and I was on the other side on the couch. And Asman was just finishing off his like evil superhero book, which I probably shouldn't talk about, but in any case, he just got like line notes from Skip. Like that whole session was just Skip like helping him out with that book, and it was like the most amazing thing to watch, like a master just kind of go through stuff and toss things out and modify, and it was a really neat experience.
Now, had you before finding that Facebook post, did you know about Skip and Asman, or like did you just like were you introduced to who they even were based off of this post in the class?
I knew Skip from Light at the End. I'd only read that that book of his, and I had no idea who Brian was. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think he at that point he'd had a couple of short stories published. And I remember during the class, I think was the first time he went to a big horror convention, and was, you know, people actually recognized him from one of his stories. So he was stoked about that.
That's awesome.
So,
I forget how I met Brian now. I've known him a while. I think maybe just from conventions, maybe, and plus I've published some of his short stories and anthologies. But yeah, now I'm struggling to think how I even met Brian Asman. I met John Skip at Fantastic Fest. We have a mutual friend named Shane McKenzie, and we were introduced doing the thing that John Skip and Shane McKenzie love doing the most, which was smoking drugs. And I am not the type of person who should do that, but I did it. And for those who don't know, Fantastic Fest is like a big film fest in Austin, Texas. So I did that with them, and then I realized I was late to the screening I wanted to see. So I ran inside, freaking out, and I ran into what I thought was a small child, and I knocked the child down, and I went, "Oh no, I'm sorry," and I went to pick him up, and then he looked at me, and I realized it was Elijah Wood, and I screamed, and I ran to the bathroom, and I hid. So I don't do drugs with John Skip anymore.
Oh my God. Elijah
Frightening.
Wood, was he really sweet to you? Like, it's
He
okay.
just looked at me like I was a maniac and I ran, which is, ironic because he was in Maniac.
That's hilarious. Do you still, like, in your mind's eye, see those wide, guileless blue eyes staring
Yes.
at you?
Yeah, I imagine when I finally take my last breaths on this planet, that's what I'll be seeing.
Oh my
uh
God. That's
it
great.
might even be funny to discover later on that it wasn't him, but my memory is that's who it was. And it would not be that impossible because he lives in Austin and evidently he's always riding around in his electric scooters, and plus it's a film fest, so he was probably attending.
It was
So
probably him, and
yeah.
he's probably tinier than I think.
Oh, he's really tiny.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't seem that like far-fetched to think that I confused him with a small boy. uh
Oh God.
yeah. When he was when they were doing the class, so did the class begin as a way to turn a screenplay into a novel? Is that right? Or
Ah,
is that what it became later on?
weird because I'm thinking it was, but at the same time, you know what? No, okay, that was not the class. The class was writing class. The post was how to turn a screenplay into a novel. And the post is what got me
Hmm.
interested in doing Skip's class. And so I'm the one in the class that came in with the screenplay that I wanted to make into a novel. Nobody ever read the screenplay. I never showed that to anybody. So that was just the basis for it. Brian was working on the superhero thing and another one because he's so damn prolific. And then
Yes.
the other two people had ideas that they were just chewing on and wanted to expand in the class. Yeah, Brian also like had a novella in that class. It was insane.
He's like a machine. I mean, you said one of the original titles was Machine Hand. That could be his nickname. It also
Mr.
it also sounds like one of the fake movies from the Grindhouse Deadpool feature that came out.
Oh
Coming
yeah,
this
exactly.
Samuel Machine Hand.
Directed by Eli Roth. There's porn,
Okay.
torture porn in it. Sorry, I like
No,
Eli Roth. I always take a shot at him.
that's fine. I mean, he's doing fine.
Yeah,
We could
nothing. I'm
we could
not going
we
to
could
ruin
take
his
many
reputation.
shots at Eli Roth. Um,
I
I
used to
think
call
he
Eli Roth leather pants because I would see him around town, and I wanted to write a book like a horror, like a giallo called Leather Pants, about a killer who's like this pretty man, who
yeah.
like is exalted by the world, but he's just this killer, and he wears leather pants. Because back when Cabin in the Woods was coming out, he was doing a lot of promo for that, and I went to see that at the Egyptian Theater. I just kept seeing him show up in these like Jim Morrison leather pants. So hence the name
Yeah.
was born because I'm so clever.
I think I mean, do you think he would do it? Do you think he would be
Would he
level
star
pants?
in that?
Yeah, yeah. He's been in some movies. I mean, he wasn't great in them, but he's been in
Oh,
some.
I feel like he would be really good. He's older now. I'm not saying he's old, but he's older now where it would be more like instead of like a French disco in like Paris where he trolls for babes, he's more like an aging beautiful man on the French Riviera who preys on old widows, right?
I think you have something.
I just see like an image of a finger like just tracing down the leather of the leather pants, make it a
That's
little
you and
more.
hands again. You just
Oh,
love
fuck, you're
hands.
right. Oh, I'm obsessed.
What big so, do you have? Okay. Oh, you from LA or did you move out to LA?
I'm from LA. I
Okay.
born here. My dad grew up near the Coliseum downtown LA.
Hmm.
Um, the mom's people um came from like farmland down in Orange County before it was Orange County. I guess it was Orange County then because there were oranges. There are no more oranges in Orange County. Um, so yeah, very much entrenched in this part of the world, I suppose. I've
Okay.
lived elsewhere, but I came back to LA because I have friends and family here and also cheap rent, if you can believe it, in LA, just because I knew people that would rent to me for cheap. So
Nice. Now, thinking back to your childhood, did anything hand related happened to you that might explain this obsession you have with hands? Did you see someone's hand get cut off? Maybe that would be something cool to talk about on a podcast. If
Oh
so,
man, no, just that TV show. I was a latchkey kid, so I watched a lot of crap I shouldn't have watched.
yeah.
Um, you know, and read a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have read. Um, but that hand thing really broke me, and I thought that. So I would stay at my grandma's house sometimes, and my grandma had this side bedroom where I'd stay in, and it had two twin beds and her old sewing machine, and it was very dark all the time because there's a big hedge outside, and it was always cold in there, and I was frightened of it because it was right off of a very long hallway, and the hallway I thought was haunted. So I'd see things walk by the door.
Mhm.
It would be like whatever I was watching, with grandpa on TV, there'd be like a mummy that would walk by. But one of the things that I really freaked out on is the hand, because I thought for sure the hand was like going to crawl up, and any part of my body that was over the edge of the bed was fair game for the hand.
Mhm.
So I was convinced that I was going to be eaten slowly, bit by hand. So that was just a fun little childhood neurosis, just born of my devotion to, watching movies at every second.
I mean, when I think about it, hands do have some fascinating imagery, like throughout many movies and books. Like the ones that come to mind when I think of hands, like those two short stories by Stephen King, I think of. One of them is called Survival Type, and it's about a guy who gets stranded on an island, and it ends with him eating the fingers off his hands, which he calls finger snacks. And there's another one. I'm struggling to think of the title, but the premise is this finger keeps poking out of the drain in the lady's sink, and she begins investigating it because she's obsessed. She's convinced that like a giant alien hand is living underneath the house. I'm struggling to think of the title, and of course you have like,
The moving finger.
okay,
The
I haven't
moving
seen it.
finger. Oh,
Oh yes, that is it.
okay.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah. I don't know how I forgot that. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
It's like
Um,
forgetting the title of that movie about the hand called The Hand.
the hand. We talked about that on our, in our emails.
Mhm.
But I saw that movie on cable, and I think I'm maybe putting it in more of an exalted position than it deserves to be in. But the idea of the hand wreaking vengeance on his enemies is really cool, and it reminds me now, I think about it, of Monkey Shines. Did you ever see that?
No.
Monkey Shines is about a guy who somehow becomes a paraplegic after jogging with bricks in his backpack, and he falls downstairs and he becomes he's paralyzed.
Uh-huh.
George A. Romero wrote and directed it, and
Does he get a
so
monkey?
yeah, he gets a monkey,
Okay.
and the
I'm
monkey like obsesses over him, and then starts like wreaking vengeance on his enemies.
I have seen
It's
this.
really
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
There's got to be a genre title for that, like the thing that you get that becomes the embodiment of all your psychoses and evil and vengeance quests. There's got
I,
to be a name for it.
I don't know what that would be, but yeah, you're right. And also because you just said Monkey Shines, it reminded me of a movie from I think the 90s called Monkey Bone. Have you seen that? With a
I don't think so.
Brendan Fraser. It's not great, but I think it has the same type of subgenre we're talking about because it's about this cartoonist, and he's famous for having this unique animation called Monkey Bone. And I think it's been like 20 years since I've seen it, but I think the premise is he dies and goes to hell. Well, some type of cartoon hell. He meets Monkey Bone, his creation, and it's like that. It's like everything, all of his deepest desires and so forth. And then like Monkey Bone, I think goes back and takes over his corpse and begins like living life.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
Maybe
I
this
have to
movie
see
is
this.
amazing. This movie might be incredible. I can't remember now. All I recall thinking was this movie made me want to be a cartoonist that I was terrible at
Wow.
drawing.
Oh my God. I'm gonna have to check it out because the cast is insane too. There's like
Yeah. Who else is in
um
it?
Bridget Fonda, Whoopi Goldberg is Death, Rose McGowan, um, Giancarlo Esposito, which I don't know if a lot of people know, but I love that dude, and he's also in a bunch of weird ass made for sci-fi television
Mm.
movies that I love. Dave Foley, Megan Mullally. Yeah, I don't
It's
know
re-
the rest of the people.
it's really
Bob Odenkirk
possible. It's really possible this is the first podcast to mention the movie Monkey Bone. So I think we just made some type of record deal.
Yay! Doug
I was obsessed
Jones
with it. Doug Jones, yeah. And
as Yeti. Fucking cool.
I'm gonna have to
Oh
track this
man.
down and rewatch it. This
Yeah,
is
I'm
now
totally
the
gonna
Monkey Bone episode.
do that.
And of course, there's the
$75
hand.
million budget, dude.
Wow.
Back in whatever 2001. That's a lot of money.
That
That's
was the final days of just greenlighting wacky ass comedies that didn't
yes.
tie in to some type of IP.
Uh, there's a quote here from Roger Ebert. He gave the film 1.5 stars out of 4, saying, "The movie labors hard. The special effects are admirable. No expense has been spared, and yet the movie never takes off. It's a bright idea the filmmakers were unable to breathe life into." I'm still down. I don't care what he says.
Yeah, it's a it's fun. My
Yeah.
really young memory of this movie is it's the greatest movie of all time. But again, it's been a long time since I've seen it. When did it come out? 90 something? No,
It was
2001, you just said.
2001. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Black
What
comedy fantasy film.
wait,
Black
what
comedy.
does it say what month it came out in 2001? Because
Theatrically released February 23rd,
it had
2001.
plenty of time. Okay. It had
Yeah.
plenty of time before all movies were forgotten for a while. Um, all right.
February
Yeah,
23. February is where they dump their turds, right? January and February
I think so.
historically.
I think so. They
Yeah.
There was a lot of if I recall, a lot of great like dick jokes in that movie. So maybe no one just had any confidence in it. Like I'm pretty sure there was a lot of like animated erections throughout it, which also
That's great.
explains why I loved it so much. Um, my also like was obviously thing that the hand that's like one of the most famous hands, right? From the Addams
The
family.
Hand, you mean
Yeah.
the Michael Caine movie?
No, the Addams family thing.
Oh, The Hand, the actual literal hand.
Yeah.
I never watched that as a kid. I was a Munsters kid.
Hmm.
Like maybe it's just because when I watched all this stuff, it was like either whatever right after school or if it was on Sunday afternoon. So it wasn't like I went, ew, I'm eschewing that one because I like the Munsters better. It was more like, well, that's what plays at 3:30, so that's what I'm watching. So, but I don't think that hand ever freaked me out because it was cartoonish enough where
Right.
it didn't scare me.
I know I've never met anyone like this, but now I do. I'm curious if they exist. Like how, like, say if you lived in Chicago, so I have you're like Cubs fan or Sox fan, and fuck you if you're the other one. Do you think there's any Munsters, Adam family people like that? Like just
I don't think so. I don't
diehard,
think
like
anybody feels that passionately about either one. Although I will tell you that Herman Munster, I feel, is one of the best characters ever. I
yeah,
love him so much. And the episode where he becomes a beatnik and goes to a beatnik place and he recites a poem off the cuff because they're all going, "Go, daddy, do it, daddy," and they're all snapping their fingers and being, TV
yeah.
beatniks. And I don't remember what the poem is. It was just so great.
I
I don't
haven't
know.
seen that episode, but
It's
it
not. I wouldn't
sounds
fight
great.
over it in anything with
Yeah.
anybody, but I will say that I think that the Munsters is Herman Munster.
Still
So
has to be someone like that in existence, though. Like I'm imagining just like
yes.
Munsters convention, and someone shows up with an Adams Family T-shirt, and they just kill him and dump the corpse outside. Uh,
Okay, I have the poem for you. I'm going to read it.
okay, please.
Okay. Ibbity bibbity sibbity sob, ibbity bibbity canal boat, dictionary down the ferry, Mary, Mary, quite contrary. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear, Fuzzy Wuzzy lost his hair, Scuba Doo and Scuba Die, that chicken's not too young to fry. Life is real, life is earnest. If you're cold, turn up the furnace.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I gonna do that. I gonna come up with a poem like that. Could you?
Oh, sure.
Well, you did write many, many, many haikus about.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you could.
Those
How
were
long did
fun.
that take you?
Oh, I don't know. I did it in a day and then added here and there because
Yeah.
at first it was all him, being a
Mhm.
stalker, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I have to represent Tanya a bit here. So,
I love those haikus so much.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
My partner he ordered one of my book. He pre-ordered,
Mhm.
and he has my poem about sporking. Now I want ice cream, on his desk, and he actually goes, "This is pretty good." Thank you, Ron. This is pretty good.
Now, is he saying that about the haiku or the book?
The hike.
Okay.
He's already read the book by having listened to me read
Oh, okay.
pieces of it to him. I think he's a little burned out on it, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Staying with this hand topic, I feel like we would be doing a crime if we didn't at least mention the Sam Raimi movies.
Oh, geez. God.
I mean,
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
nothing to me. I mean, I love those movies, and just peak physical comedy is Bruce Campbell smashing himself in the face with many, many plates with a possessed hand.
Oh my God. That one thing, we should put into a rocket and send out into space. Like it's just so on its own, it's just genius. The whole movie was genius.
Mhm.
I saw that before I saw the first one. I saw Evil Dead Part 2 and then
Me
went back.
too.
I was a little disappointed in the first one just because
Mhm.
Evil Dead Part 2 was just pure mayhem and it was hilarious. And it also still freaked me out. Like I was
Yeah.
still freaked out by it, the thing in the friggin' cellar. But when I was writing my book, I was so aware of that scene, and I thought I cannot be. It's an easy comparison to make, and I just didn't want to have to wade through that. So I really tried hard not to go there in that exact same way. But I got to say that scene is just brilliantly directed, written, acted, and especially edited.
Mhm.
And I love that last image of the thing under the bucket with the farewell to arms on top of it. It's like,
Yes.
yay!
What a great
Um,
movie. Wow.
I don't
I
think there's any female hands. I'm going to think about that because I don't think there's any evil female hands crawling around, evil witch hands. It's all dude.
Let me Google female hands. What could possibly come up?
Dude, you know that both of us are on some kind of list. Like,
Yeah.
my latest I went to put evil in Google right now because I was going to say female hands, and my last search came up, which is evil sand head. So
Oh
like,
no.
I'm sure they must know I'm a writer. They must know because there's
Yeah.
really some like upsetting things, yeah, in my Google search.
Yeah. What's the context of that?
Okay, so I wrote this short story for an anthology that's coming out at the end of March, and I wrote about an evil Sandman, like
Mhm.
on the Mayan Riviera.
Mhm.
And I was going to make a little tiny trailer for my story. It's called The Death God's Way. And I've structured it like The Artist's Way, if you're familiar with that book, which is a handbook. And so I even made a little image that looks like the Artist's Way book. It's got like a red strip down the right side.
Mhm.
And so I was just looking for imagery of Sandman, but of course it keeps coming up with Neil Gaiman stuff. but
Mhm.
evil sand head or sandmen or any kind of imagery like that. So
Yeah.
I was just grabbing images and trying to put them all together.
What type of research did you have to do for this novel? Like, did you know already a lot about hand amputation, or did you have to do some
I
Googling?
did research. Yeah, I did some research on. We're almost there. Like I set this book in the future, but it's really not that far into the future. We're already to the point where there is stuff happening in this where the hands move, where the mind can move the
Hmm.
fingers and so forth. It just depends on the nerve endings of whatever it's attached to. Um, and so I just kind of deep dived into the world of prostheses, and yeah, the technology in a couple years is going to be so good. I don't know if it's going to be so good that it like seamlessly interacts with your body. I mean, that's like how many years in the future is that? I have no idea. Where you could just grow another part,
Yeah.
and have it attach and then look smooth and normal. Um, so I got into that. I also got into, I didn't really do too much of this in the book, but I'm really into like phantom limb syndrome is really interesting to me,
Hmm.
where you think that your hand is there and it itches, but it's not there.
Right.
And there's then, because you know how it is, you go and you do research, you go down the rabbit hole. Then I remember I got to kirlian photography, and that is where the what is it? Like the heat of your body is photographed with ultraviolet film, and is it ultraviolet film? But anyway, it's like your aura, right? It's aura photography. So you can see if you've got a blue aura or a green aura. And I got my aura picture taken a long time ago, but and it was really strange experience. But people who have no limb still have like sometimes have an aura in
Hmm.
that area. And I know I'm venturing into pseudoscience right now, so I'll go stop myself. But yeah, I did some research on I didn't want to be disrespectful to anybody that
Right.
has this problem. So I did research in terms of like the prostheses and what people are doing, what kind of things are available to people so they can have mobility. So
No, while doing all this, beyond what you just mentioned, like, was there any other like strange like facts or anecdotes you discovered of people having this process done to them?
no, not other than the photography, the kirlian
Hmm.
photography that they still
Yeah.
have it was. So um I wish I had one for you.
Yeah. But you said you had you said you had the photography done to you as well, and it was a strange experience. How so?
Well, okay, I will tell you the story. I was 18. I was working as a waitress. I was working as a waitress in a diner, and I had a bunch of older friends that would buy me drinks and older waitress gals. And one of them had a boyfriend who was a photographer for one of the news stations. And he had this cool house in Laurel Canyon. And I don't know what kind of relationship they had, but I was a naive idiot punk rocker. And he said that he would give me some money if I came over and let him take a picture of me for his kirlian photography
Oh
project.
no.
And I thought, well, she'll be there. Okay, I'll do it. I need money because I was on my own from a young age.
Yeah.
I needed the money. And so I get over to the house and my friend isn't there. The lady isn't there.
Hmm.
And I thought she was old, but she's like 26. And I'm like, oh, the lady, my lady friend, and they're not here. It's just him. Oh, okay. So, they say a lot of like harm comes to women because they're too polite, and that nothing really bad happened to me, but he basically talked me into like getting naked
Oh. Oh no.
and taking a picture of my aura. And then
Right.
all of a sudden he starts taking his clothes off. And I went, wait, what's going on here, bud?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I just wanted to see the interaction. And it was all very scientific. So we just stood next to each other and he's like, this is interesting because we'll see our interaction. Our auras will have to interact in some way. And he has
Yeah.
this little handheld button to take the pictures. And he's got a tripod and a camera
Hmm.
on it. And he said, I sound like such an idiot, dude. And I
No,
was.
not at all.
So, and I'm like being polite, going, oh, okay. And then he's like, well, let's try a touch. And so then he touches my shoulder, and then the hand goes down to the boob. And I just let that happen because it didn't move around. And then I'm
Right.
like, yeah, this is cool. I feel like we got a lot. And he's like, well, you're really tense. I feel like I should give you a massage. And so I am such an idiot. I almost said, yeah, cool, that sounds great, just because I didn't want to upset him. But then I just went, you know what? Nah, no, I don't think so. And I started putting my clothes on. And the last image I have of him is at the top of the stairs, pulling his pants up and everything as I'm leaving. And he's going, I didn't do anything out of line, right? I didn't do anything out of line. It's cool, right? And I went, oh, yeah, yeah, everything's cool. Everything's cool as I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But the upside of that whole encounter was a pretty good weird story. And I got the picture of my aura, which was a full length picture of the outline of my body with all these colors.
Like,
Pretty
what does
neat.
Phil Stoff? That guy's a fucking creep, and I'm glad he got out of that. I'm sorry that happened.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah,
to
it's been
to
a
the
while. So, yeah.
what does the like? I've never seen one of these photos. So, like, is it just like multicolored? Like, what does it exactly look
Yeah,
like?
it's multicolored. Um, let's see. It says high voltage photographic. I don't know. I didn't know what it was other than he said it was like um a coded film that he puts in
Okay.
and into the camera. And it was invented by some Russian dude named Semen Kirlian. Um, I'm looking at just Google. It says it reveals a mysterious aura-like
Yeah.
halo, but it's basically the electromagnetic field that surrounds humans. So
Huh.
you could see the figure of my figure, and you could see the outline of my figure, and you could see like different colors. There was blue, green, a lot of red and orange, probably because I was nervous as fuck.
Yeah.
I told my mom about it later, my poor mother. She goes, there's pictures of you somewhere naked, but I have yet to see them.
Yeah. Um. Wasn't expecting that. That's
Did I
really
just freak you out with my sad story of almost being
a little
murdered?
bit. A little bit.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I survived, Max, and I'm here to tell about it.
You
And that guy's a
survived.
creep.
You wrote a great book. Not about that, but you
I
and
do like, okay, so I wrote for your newsletter. I do have a
yes.
control thing, and we talked about the drugs. Like, it's just too
Mhm.
hard for me to lose control of myself, like, truly lose control. And the idea of like possession freaks me out.
Mhm.
I was raised a Catholic child, so of course, possession is part of that mythos in a way, the dark side of it at least. So I was
Yeah.
always kind of worried about being possessed by a demon, especially after seeing The Exorcist at age 13 on late night television with my brother. We were home alone.
Mhm.
My mom was asleep. My dad was working late. We were like, let's watch this. And it was so upsetting. And then, of course, I played the Ouija board because I wanted to tempt fate,
Yeah.
see if Captain Howdy would like show up for me.
You know,
Um,
this is kind of related. So
hmm,
I have a dog, and he does this thing a lot. Bill, if he now I'm going to say
Frank?
this, yeah, Frank. I'm going to say this real, but he's at my feet, so you might freak out when I say it. But
Ah,
he loves playing with balls, and one of the things he loves to do is he takes it to the bottom of the couch, or maybe at the top of a tall surface. And he'll begin edging it like it's going to fall off or it's going to go too deep underneath. He'll quickly grab it. It's like he loves the risking it. It's like
ah,
this odd thrill, and I didn't get it for a while, but then I began thinking it's kind of like when people play like with a Ouija board, right? It's the temptation of it. So I think it's the
mhm,
same thing.
yeah,
I
yeah. Like,
realize
am I
now
being
maybe I
possessed?
compelled you to my dog, but
Ah.
which I do apologize for.
It's not an inapt comparison, my friend. I used to do that kind of stuff all the time. Like the Ouija board was a big thing, and then when it moved on its own, because we expected it to move on its own, right? We expected expectation created this weird thing that happened, and I still don't know if the other 13-year-olds with me, if one of them actually pushed it, because all of us said we didn't, but it
Mhm.
kind of moved on its own.
Yeah.
And then I put it in my closet. And then I used to have nightmares about something inside my closet, like calling to me because I shunned the board into the closet. And so then I finally took the board and I put it in a trash can behind the supermarket. So, and then never played again, but it really did freak me out. And so, but that's what you want, like with horror, right? That's, I don't know, you kind of want to get to that edge. You want that ball to go to the edge before it almost falls, and then you want to save it. At least I do. Some horror, you don't save the ball, you get pulled in with the ball. But in the horror that I write, I think I kind of like either redemption of some sort or, being saved at the last second. Who knows? Maybe I'll write something real dark. But or going over to some friggin' 32-year-old dude's house when you're 18 to like get your picture taken naked. That's cool. That's smart.
You will, I mean, how old were you? I mean, you were pretty young.
18.
Yeah,
I mean, I was a total idiot.
I mean, I think everybody is 18 though, right?
True, but there's, and also I was like independent, I lived on my own. It wasn't like I was at home with my mom and I said, okay, I'm going to go over and get my picture taken by whatever her name is, his boyfriend. And my mom would say, no, I was in my own apartment with roommates. So there was no one to stop me. I had a car. I needed the money. So I did not think it was going to be naked. That was the thing. When I went there, but of course, the minute that came up, looking back, well, I should have just said, "Oh yeah, no, that's not happening." And 1 year later or 2 years later, I probably would have that would have been my response. But I was a nice kid, so I was not going to ruin his kirlian photography experience. Even then, and as stupid as I was, I knew that he's an old perv.
Right. I mean, who knows how many other people he did the same thing to, right?
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if his girlfriend ever knew, or if she was in on it, or I don't know if they were swingers. I don't know. I've thought about it over the years. I do remember seeing her again years later at a different restaurant, and she had dumped him and she was married to some old dude, and she was trying to get me to sign a petition to make English the official language of America. And I went, oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, you're gross.
Yeah.
Bye. So
Adios.
never saw her again.
Wow. I also think, I mean, looking back on things like this, it's really easy to think now, like, oh, why didn't I see that? But it's easier to think that way in the future than it is in the moment. I mean, everyone,
In another string of reality, I'm probably dead and I'm in Laurel Canyon in his backyard.
Yeah. So I'm glad that's not the case.
Yeah. I'm in this string, so it's all cool.
You in the book, there's a pretty. Did the dog arrive?
Uh-oh, sorry. Yes, the dog is here.
Okay.
What do I do?
It's okay. So we'll quickly wrap things up. I in the email when we were talking about when to plan this, you mentioned at a certain point a dog will show up. So please tell me what you meant by that.
Okay, so I rent a house, and in the back, and my landlord has like a man den in the backyard and like a little house.
Yeah.
And he uses this like as an office, and he's got the greatest dog ever. His name is Diggs. He's a Patterdale Terrier or something like that. He's like a mini pit bull. And he's Cooper's my dog, who's a little corgi mix. He's his friend and enemy. Okay.
Yes.
They love each other. They tackle each other. They fight like little motherfuckers. And then they trot alongside shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. They love each other. He shows up and he's got a routine, and that is to like scream at me at the back door until I give him a treat.
Okay.
And then Cooper starts screaming from inside the house because his little buddy's here. And then he gets jealous and he wants a treat. So it's just mayhem for about 20 minutes in the morning.
I love it. That's great. Oh, I don't want to deprive this dog of any treats. So did you have any final thoughts you wanted to say about the book or hands and
oh man, I don't have any final thoughts. I'm glad that people who have read it so far have liked it. I wrote something that I wanted to be kind of fun and with a little bit of heart. And
I think you did that. Absolutely.
Yeah. right? Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Pick it up. I mean, it's available now. Go to I mean, you even have a specific website you can list, don't you? What's
Likereal.net.
Yes. Which is real fast. I'm gonna just shield this anecdote before we give this dog a treat. When I was editing the book, I even made a note saying, "Oh, this is a great website name. We should try to buy it." And you were like, "Yes, we should." And then later on, I discovered it was really expensive to buy, so I was like, "I can't get this." And you were like, "Oh, okay." And then later on, you emailed me and said, "Oh, wait, I own it already."
Dude, how do I forget that? I
I
must
don't
have
know.
done it in a late night fugue. And it was probably only $15 at the time. So
Yeah.
somehow it's gone up in price, competing against myself. Can you imagine if I bought it again?
Money goes out and immediately back in. All right. Great. How can folks find you online besides that website? What are your social media tags?
I am facebook.com Ms. Lyons, MIZLYONS. I am Instagram is Ms. Lyons again, MIZLYONS. But I added here at the end, HERE. And then on Twitter, which I have a weird relationship with, but I'm there, is Doll Terror 13. Because there's a lot of doll terrors on Instagram. So I picked Doll Terror 13.
Okay. Excellent.
All right.
I think that's it. That wraps up the show. Thank you for doing this. This is going to go live tomorrow.
Thank you. And I hope if when people learn one thing, it's if you're a young woman and the guy wants to take a picture of you, just don't do it unless it's in public.
And that was Shelly Lyons talking about hands. Go pick up Like Real from ghoulishbooks.com. It's a good book. You will going to enjoy it. This is not a suggestion. I'm telling you, God damn it, you will going to enjoy this book and you have no choice. You have no choice at all. Just like you have no choice in rating and reviewing the podcast on iTunes. The moment you finish listening to this episode, go do it. Please, for the love of God, do it. And tell your friends about it. Don't have any friends? That's okay. Break into your local grocery store. You don't even have to break into it. It's probably open. Just go to it. And begin screaming, Ghoulish Book, Ghoulish Podcast, Ghoulish Book Fest, Ghoulish Books, Ghoulish Podcast, Ghoulish Bookshop, Ghoulish everything until they shoot you dead in aisle 6.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Max.